HubSpot makes impossible growth impossibly easy for their customers. And here's the perfect example. Morehouse College needed to reach new students with fresh, engaging content. But with a massive 900-page website, even the tiniest updates took 30 minutes to publish. Breeze, HubSpot's collection of AI tools, helped them write and optimize their content in a fraction of the time. The results? 30% more page views, and visitors now spend 27% more time on their site. If you're ready for impossible growth like this, you can visit HubSpot.com. Good morning, everybody. It's Monday, July 28th. I'm Jon Weigell, here with business journalist and founder of Macro Talk, Hope King, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. The media business isn't for the faint of heart. We would know. However, there still are great businesses and brands popping up every day with nichified angles and hungry target audiences. So how would you go about finding your audience and starting a media empire? Hope King, journalist and founder of Macro Talk, joins the show to tell us how. We'll get to that in a bit, but first, let's give you the news in business and tech as always. Starting us off today, following the infamous Coldplay Kiss Cam incident that's led to Astronomer CEO Andy Byron and Chief People Officer Kristen Cabot both resigning, the data company made an interesting choice. It hired actress Gwyneth Paltrow, ex-wife of Coldplay frontman Chris Martin, to talk about what the company does and its upcoming conference in a short parody video. It seems the scandal has actually been great for Astronomer's visibility and also Coldplay's. The band's audio streams were up 25% last Thursday. Next up here in some AI information, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman reminded ChatGPT users that unlike human therapists, doctors, and lawyers, the chatbot has no doctor-patient or legal confidentiality clause. Should a legal issue arise, OpenAI would be required to turn over the conversations users have had with ChatGPT. So just be careful out there. From there, we go to Intel. Intel said it would let over 25,000 employees go this year and is on track to spin off or entirely offload 4 divisions as well. Lest we forget, the chip maker was once worth $495 billion and was one of the first 2 tech companies added to the Dow. Right now, they're on a slide, but can they pick it back up? And finally here, Marvel Studios' popcorn bucket for Fantastic Four First Step is both the largest and most expensive of the increasingly elaborate marketing gimmicks. It's shaped like the film villain Galactus. It has glowing LED eyes. It holds 9 liters of popcorn, and it could be yours for just $80. The popcorn buckets have been getting pretty elaborate at movie theaters. They've been trying everything they can to make that income back. If you're like me, you're trying to figure out how artificial intelligence is changing the business world and our lives. Big Technology Podcast from reporter Alex Kantrowitz has the answers. The show hosts top leaders from places like NVIDIA, OpenAI, Amazon, and more, asking them where this is all really going. It also does fun news recaps every Friday with top-tier analysts. So if you want to be smart with your wallet, your career choices, meetings with your colleagues, and at dinner parties, you can listen to Big Technology Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. That's Big Technology Podcast. For more updates and headlines like that, you can subscribe to the show, and we'll have more for you tomorrow and the next day and the day after that too. But right now, we're going to have a chat with Hope King, the founder of Macro Talk, about media companies and starting one in 2025. Let's get into it. Welcome to the show, Hope.
Thank you so much for having me.
You obviously have spent a ton of time in journalism. So can you first talk to me about how to start your own brand and go from working for somebody else to working for yourself?
Yeah, I think the first part of building a brand outside of yourself is recognizing how your personal brand is already being perceived. So really reflecting on the people that you've worked with in the past, how you've worked with them, what they've come to you for when you're a reporter, and then expanding it from there. But it really does start with understanding your own personal brand.
Yeah, totally. And when you jump right from understanding your personal brand to starting an effective media brand, what are the steps that you have to take there? You're coming from a place before where it was like, oh, people understand and know my reporting and understand and know my content. But now when I bring that to a new brand with a different name, how does that kind of work?
What I've learned so far from the reception and the early success that I've seen and that has really exceeded my expectations is that your story has to make sense. It's okay if you want to completely start something new and start talking about, pets as an example. But if, that's your passion and if you can explain why that makes sense for you, I think that is really the first step. I think when you build on your past brand, that's when it becomes clear to everyone that this was always sort of what you were destined to do, or this is why the story makes sense. And so for me, Macro Talk was really born out of this passion for having deep conversations with my guests. When I was an anchor on Cheddar, I had 4 to 7 minutes of live TV time to ask maybe 2 or 3 questions to engage a guest in 30-second sound bites. And I always craved more. And especially when I started to interview more senior executives, CEOs like Satya Nadella of Microsoft, those moments were, precious. I mean, to even book the guest and to spend the time reporting. So as a journalist, as a reporter, you want that time. And so Macro Talk was born really out of that. And the second sort of concept that Macro Talk was really born out of and is built on is the need that audiences have now for these conversations that are more in depth. And so for me, it was a win-win. And it's been a win-win because I've really been able to align my passions with what audiences are now craving.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would love to be in the position you're in of, not only starting something new and being at like the precipice of it, but also identifying and finding your audience or people that you want to speak to. Can you tell me about that process of determining who you really wanted to target and actually finding them on the internet? Because, it's tough to find people out there sometimes.
It is. And the algorithms for sure have a lag. So as most of us know, if you post something, it might take days for somebody that you really want to see to actually see that on their timeline.
Yeah.
But I think I would just go back to, in my particular case, because I am building upon everything that I've been doing and been working on and working toward in journalism, my audience has been with me this entire time. So I started out as a big tech reporter, and then I graduated and expanded into business and investing, content and news. And then at Axios, it was sort of the bigger picture, executive level, intersection of politics. And so because my work, I think, has demonstrated that it deserves the trust and the following of everybody who has been with me since sort of day one as my supporters and followers and readers, that has actually naturally just been a built-in audience that I've been able to tap into from the start. And so I do recognize that it is a bit of a privilege and, a position that not everyone can be in when they launch their own brand if they are just starting out in journalism or in content from scratch.
Listen, you built it yourself. So there you go. I would love to get your opinion on LinkedIn generally, because of course, Macro Talks, obviously you're going to be utilizing LinkedIn a lot. Can you talk to me about how you've seen LinkedIn grow as a content platform? Because I feel like that's something that's so new to a lot of people and not something that we consider as creators when we're putting stuff on YouTube, TikTok, wherever. How do you think LinkedIn has grown in that way, and how do you use it effectively?
I think one of the benefits of having been a tech reporter in the past is that I've been watching this trend evolve. I've been covering Twitter and its transformation under Elon. And that really clued me into the shift that we've seen over the past 2 years, that as X became a lot more toxic and people fled, they needed a place where, frankly, decorum and respect are still key currencies of communication and interaction. And I think people crave that in the world of social media where the rules are very, very blurred. I also think that LinkedIn is naturally where the outcome aligns with the content. I mean, at the end of the day, we all create content to reach somebody, to get a new business opportunity, to get a new job. And so you're going to fish where everybody else is fishing. You're going to eat there. You're going to build your home there. And LinkedIn has also taken advantage of the demise of X and Twitter to their advantage to start cultivating and incentivizing creators to come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think the LinkedIn platform has really transformed over the past few years? And how are you aiming to use the platform to help yourself out, especially with Macro Talk being a new venture?
Yeah, I think Macro Talk is already this video first platform, and bringing it to LinkedIn has enabled me to, in some ways, differentiate from the short form format. I mean, everybody has asked me, like, what is your short form strategy? And I don't have one right now because I actually am really focused on long form. I understand clips are a great top funnel into getting people to subscribe.
Sure.
But again, I think in this very crowded landscape, in order to stand out, I offer something different. I want to also, in some ways, prime my audience to expect something different and to want that in the future. And so I'm experimenting with the length of the videos on LinkedIn, but because the content is pretty targeted toward people who are decision makers, who are workers, who are anxious about their jobs, that I will trust that the algorithm will feed my content to the people who need to see it. And it has been very effective for a lot of entrepreneurs that I've watched over the last 2 years. And so I fully expect that it will happen for me, and obviously crossing all my fingers and toes.
Yeah, of course. Of course. When you decided to start Macro Talks, I also want to know any blind spots that you saw in the market for the type of content you want to make. You mentioned especially more like long form content versus short form content, which I think is desperately needed on a platform like LinkedIn, to be honest. So did that go through your mind at all? Like, what blind spots, like what are people not doing that I can come in and do?
Absolutely. In my first career was a business development executive and product manager for a big Wall Street bank. And so product is at the heart of what I'm building, the experience that people will have with my content. And to your exact point, I did create something, I think, that fills a gap, which is business news has traditionally been geared toward investors in the format of a CNBC, a Bloomberg, very fast-paced, live, what's going on in the stock market, Yahoo. Right, places I've worked, formats that I'm very familiar with. But as the world has grown more complex and interconnected, and as people have craved, again, more long form, I realized that nobody was really having these in-depth conversations about how everything is connected. And at the end of the day, you and I cannot consume the amount of business headlines in one day. And when we do, sometimes it can feel very much surface level. Like, what is the deeper understanding? And so the value that I'm hoping to provide through my conversations and interviews is to help people, is to connect the dots for them, first of all, and then to help them understand what's coming next and how to actually take action. Because I think a lot of times, information kind of sits surface level here, but how does it actually get absorbed into our bodies, into our everyday lives?
That makes sense. I feel like you, in starting this new venture, have probably had some challenges come up. And I also wonder for anybody out there trying to start a media business, because there are so many. Even an influencer can be a media business technically. So do you have any advice for anybody about starting a media business nowadays, and really what it takes and any challenges that you've had to overcome so far?
Yeah, I think for me personally, the biggest obstacle was getting out of my own head, and being a perfectionist meant that I wasn't launching or shipping anything for a while, and that I'd been sitting on a lot of ideas because I was so afraid. So for me, that was probably one of the biggest challenges, having that voice kind of be shut down in order to actually do the work and to get it out there.
Right.
I think the other challenge I think a lot of people will face is juggling and multitasking. I'm presenting to sponsors, I'm actually doing the interviews, the producing, the booking, and there unfortunately are only a certain number of hours during the day that I'm most productive. And I think that has been a limitation, and I think a lot of people run up against that as well. So for me, those were probably the two biggest challenges. And I think for other people who are building this, understanding where you are most passionate, so if that's in content or partnerships, just understanding that is really important, because ultimately you will need help. And so just think about, even from the beginning, who you might want to bring on.
Sure. Have you brought anybody on so far? And what points do they occupy that you really needed help with?
So for video editing, I have had
video editing. Oh yeah.
I mean, as you know, it is so time consuming.
Yes.
And with the way that I am releasing my episodes, they're in drops. It's not a weekly serial. It is like a Netflix binge distribution model and launch strategy. And so I really just needed a second pair of eyes to look through to make sure that graphics were in line. And I have consulted with many friends and advisors on business partnerships, because that is something that is, new to me in this capacity as a solo media operator. And that's been really fun, but also very frightening. And at the same time, to have to sell yourself, as you're also reporting on the news.
Yeah, totally. Well, Hope, thank you for all the insights. I'm sure I and everybody listening will pay very close attention to Macro Talk. So definitely go check it out where you can, everybody. But Hope, thank you so much for being here and taking us through your thoughts.
Thank you so much. Yeah, subscribe on YouTube, follow on LinkedIn. My DMs are open. I'm open to collaborations and great stories and tips. So thanks again, Jon. It was great to be with you.
Yeah, great to chat. Okay, that's going to do it for us today, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of HubSpot Media. Our editor is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We've got a ton more tech and business coverage in our newsletter. If you're not subscribed, go sign up at thehustle.co/email and follow us on Instagram at thehustledaily. We'll catch you later. Hey everybody, I've been listening to this great podcast lately. It's called Latinx in Power, hosted by Thaisa Fernandez, and it's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. So Latinx in Power is a podcast that features interviews with top-level executives, entrepreneurs, and innovators from Latin America, aiming to demystify the tech industry by providing listeners with an insider perspective and insights from Latin American leaders who have succeeded in their fields. A lot of great episodes on this one. My personal favorite recently was an episode with Isabel Alvarez, who is a graphic designer that designs cookbooks. She has 15 years of experience blending editorial design, branding, and experiential design. She really views design as a catalyst for meaningful social change, so I think this is a great episode to get you going with this show. You can listen to Latinx in Power wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, look. Side hustles fail when they consume all of your time. I mean, every single bit of it. The pros, though, work smarter with AI doing all the heavy lifting. To help you out, we just dropped the Side Hustle Accelerator database. You can search your exact problem for your side hustle, grab the perfect prompt, and get results. If you're struggling with marketing, content, and customer service, it's all solved in just seconds. This isn't just another tool, guys. It's your unfair advantage in a spreadsheet. So stop asking AI the wrong questions and start scaling with what actually works. You can get it for free in the link in our show notes. And you can stop right now, actually. Why don't you take a look down at those show notes and tap the link? You don't want to sleep on this.